Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the launch of an exciting and necessary public awareness campaign about how we can all take steps to combat the lasting effects of childhood adversity. My name is Katie Storr, and I am the Deputy Commissioner for Operations at the New Jersey Department of Children and Families. On behalf of my colleagues at DCF and the members of the New Jersey ACEs Collaborative, I'm happy to welcome you today to today's virtual press conference to kick off the Actions4Aces campaign. This public awareness campaign, which will, at least initially, connect educators and law enforcement to the work that we are engaged in to mitigate the harmful effects of adverse childhood experiences, couldn't come at a more appropriate or necessary time in New Jersey's history. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, is a term that was coined in a landmark study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and Kaiser Permanente, a managed healthcare network, in the 1990s. That original study found that children who experience specific stressful events in childhood, experiencing the loss of a parent due to divorce, incarceration, or death, witnessing or being victim to violence or physical abuse in the home, experiencing emotional or material neglect, substance use, or mental health challenges within the family, that these children were more likely to experience negative outcomes into adulthood, including higher rates of cardiovascular and respiratory disease, the inability to retain or achieve meaningful employment, challenges maintaining social connections, economic disenfranchisement, housing instability, and even early death. In subsequent research, it was determined that while ACEs can be the result of personal adversity, such as problems within the family, they can also result from community problems, such as community violence, systemic racism, entrenched poverty, and an unprecedented health crisis like COVID-19. ACEs are the unseen pandemic we're working against in the child welfare arena. They're pervasive, with 2 out of 3 children experiencing at least one ACE. And if left unaddressed, the effects can be both debilitating and intergenerational. But the effects of ACEs can also be disrupted by the involvement of just one caring, competent, and compassionate adult who shows interest, who engages with empathy and kindness, and who builds resilience in children by showing them that we're all so much more than the accumulation of any negative experiences. That's the campaign we're here today to launch. The Actions4Aces campaign uses language to suggest and evoke kindness and empathy, to encourage professionals who interact with young children to step up through small but impactful acts to be there for children going through adversity. It's strengths-based, uplifting messaging to empower educators and law enforcement to offer safe space and a willing ear to children in need. We hope that it will help to develop a common framework and will allow us to start using a shared language around ACEs in our work across New Jersey, not just in child welfare, education, and law enforcement, but across the entire policy and public service spectrum. We hope that this campaign will spark important conversations across our state about how we can support youth who have experienced ACEs, particularly as we settle together into the new normal after living through a global pandemic. We know that as schools return to in-person learning this fall, we will be faced with new challenges, including helping children readjust to day-to-day engagement with peers and teachers, and new stressors posed by the pandemic and post-pandemic environment. We know that there will be an increased need for opportunities to create healing spaces and to focus on the child's strengths rather than what he or she may have lost. And we believe that the Actions4Aces campaign can be one tool to raise awareness, encourage empathy, and contribute to our state's healing. This is not the end of the conversation. We hope it's only just the beginning. We hope you'll take the information you learned today and the collateral created for this campaign and put it into practice to have the conversation, to share on social media or in your precinct buildings or teachers' break rooms. We hope you'll join us on this journey, whether it's through amplifying our voice or putting our suggestions into action. And working together, we can change the trajectory of children who've experienced so much adversity in their lives for the better. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to take a moment to thank our partners within the New Jersey ACEs Collaborative, the Nicholson Foundation, the Turrell Fund, the New Jersey Office of Resilience, and especially the Burke Foundation for all their hard work to make this campaign a reality. And now it is my distinct honor to welcome a true champion for maternal and early childhood health and wellness, First Lady Tammy Murphy, to further underscore why this campaign is so important. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Katie, thank you so much for that introduction and for your leadership at the Department of Children and Families. You have been a passionate and effective advocate for and an ally to New Jersey's families. And I could say something similar to everyone here today, from our incredible speakers to our educators, law enforcement professionals, and community members who are watching. I know everyone virtually present today has the same objective: supporting New Jersey's children and families. So I would like to thank the New Jersey ACEs Collaborative for bringing us together and for their work creating the Actions for ACEs campaign. Through Nurture NJ, our maternal and infant health initiative, I have had many opportunities to work alongside the NJ ACEs Collaborative. The connection between our work is clear. The toxic stress of adverse childhood experiences can have lasting negative effects on the well-being of children into their adulthood, leading to a host of physical problems like obesity and diabetes, as well as cognitive, social, and emotional problems. As these children grow and become parents themselves, not only can their adverse childhood experiences contribute to negative birth outcomes, they can also lead to a cycle of trauma that revisits each successive generation. But this cycle can be broken. Young people can learn resilience, the process of adapting and overcoming challenges in the face of adversity. This important finding helped motivate our work on Nurture NJ. If we support parents and their children as early as possible, we can help prevent ACEs and create a cycle of healthy outcomes for mom, baby, and the entire family. And I'm proud to say that not only are our work and objectives closely aligned, so is our strategy. Our understanding of these issues has evolved. No longer are the emotional, social, and physical effects of stress and trauma understood as separate entities. Therefore, we do not work in silos. In our Nurture NJ strategic plan, we set a goal for the state that all families will live in environments that are protective against any potential ACEs. To effectively reach that goal, we are focused on improving access to healthcare across a person's entire life course, ensuring that individuals who have faced ACEs have access to the support and services they need to maintain good physical and mental health. This kind of trauma-informed care helps support young people as they heal from childhood adverse experiences. But better access to healthcare is not the only imperative in solving our maternal and infant health crisis, nor the adverse childhood experiences that plague so many of New Jersey's families. Just as Nurture NJ's maternal and infant health statewide strategic plan includes recommendations for organizations, industries, and government agencies from every field and sphere of life that directly or indirectly affects the lives of our mothers and babies, Actions for ACEs seeks to include all those who have the opportunity to support our young people, especially our educators and law enforcement. The overarching goal of Nurture NJ is to make New Jersey the safest and most equitable place in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. And that means that our efforts must extend beyond pregnancy, delivery, and postpartum care. It also means that to best serve our families, New Jersey must be committed to becoming a trauma-informed and healing-centered state. We can begin to create these healing spaces in our schools and communities. And our educators and law enforcement professionals are perhaps the most essential part of this important endeavor. So I want to thank everyone here today, our speakers, our educators, law enforcement, and community members for the role each of you will play in this effort and for your commitment and dedication to New Jersey's children and families. Together, we will make New Jersey the safest and most equitable place in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, First Lady Murphy, for your friendship first and your leadership on this topic. You know, it's interesting. I remember the first time we met when we rolled out the statewide action plan. And during that press conference, you have an air about you that just says, I'm talking directly to you. And it didn't matter who was listening. From my perspective, it felt like you were speaking individually to each one of us. And I appreciate that because it talks about how important you see individuals both in this work and as a part of this state of New Jersey. You talked about ACEs in multiple ways. And I just want to tell everyone out there that first of all, when the First Lady was talking, one of the things that she talked about was becoming a trauma-informed and healing-centered state. If you look in the statewide action plan, you're going to find that that is the first core piece of that plan. And so we've been working on that diligently even from the time I arrived here in July of last year. You know, it's really difficult to think that we're a year in since I arrived here in New Jersey, to think about where we were and where we are now and what we see to be the future on a very near horizon. This work, as I keep telling folks, is exceptionally personal for me. Excuse me. That it's very personal for me. I look at every child in the state of New Jersey the same way I looked at children in Minnesota. They're all mine. I have multiple children all across the state, and my pledge is to continue to do the work for the folks of the state of New Jersey. It's, in a moment, I'm going to share some slides with you. But before I jump into the slides, the other thing I just wanted to make really clear is that this is an awareness campaign. And if you look in the action plan, you'll find that that's core structure number 2. And so we're touching on a number of things today, but this piece called awareness is the first step. The second step, and I think is, which becomes even more important, and I'll probably repeat this multiple times, is that we then have to figure out, how do we move forward? And in doing that, I just want to recognize that while we're talking about awareness, raising awareness, that then we also have to recognize the work that's already going on. That there are multiple agencies across this great state of New Jersey who have been doing this work for a while. To recognize the work that they've done at the start, when you hear from Chief Lusner, you'll be able to hear from someone who's been at this work on the ground from the beginning. And so all of you who are out there doing that work know, whether you're doing it in a homelessness area, whether you're thinking of those 10 things that were in the original ACE study, those 5 forms of household dysfunction, the abuse and the neglect, or whether you want to talk about bullying or food insecurity. All of those things are root causes, and that's what you're working on. That's what this whole thing is about, is raising the awareness so that we can have even more people shouting from the rooftops that these are the things that we need to address. And now I would like to just share a few slides with you. First of all, I want to just say that as we think about this launch of the Actions4Aces campaign, I've been looking forward to this since we started creating it. And finally, I can tell folks that here we are, we're ready to go, and we're going to roll it out. So next slide, please. I just want to say thank you to all the speakers that we have here with us today. And you see them all there on your screen. Whether it's Deputy Commissioner Katie Storr, the First Lady, of course, and myself, and looking at Angel Santiago, our Teacher of the Year for 2021. I've got Jen Davenport as the Principal Law Enforcement Advisor to the Attorney General. Chris Lusner, the chief of police in Middle Township Police Department. And last but not least, Amanda Adams, who is a very dear friend, who also happens to be with the New Jersey Education Association, your state teachers union, and is the associate director in the professional development division. She's also the coordinator of the Priority Schools Initiative. And quite frankly, she's the reason that I arrived in New Jersey from the very beginning. So I just want to say thank you, a special thank you to her, and we'll talk more about her in a little while. Next slide, please. Our partners. Nothing happens without partners in this work, and those of you who are here know that very dearly. Over the past 6 months, we've gotten critical input and insights from this group to help bring the campaign to life. And quite frankly, it's through your leadership that we will collectively take actions for ACEs. Next slide. We're thrilled to share the Action for ACEs campaign with you today. For me, it's important because it's a part of the structure that when I came here, I told you I didn't have a plan that I could just give you that would be the answer, but that I had a plan for developing that plan. And part of that is about increasing the awareness. And so increasing that awareness by ways of providing education and opportunity for us to have a conversation. And so to that end, it's about increasing the number of people in our community. And at this point, let me just say we're starting with law enforcement and educators. This is our beginning step. There is more to come. So be prepared as we go along to help us figure out who are the other groups and how do we do this. But we need everyone to be knowledgeable and understand this language. We want a common language so that when anyone says ACEs, we all know what that means. You know, the ACEs are that root cause. I've tried to talk with folks and for multiple times now, and I think folks get this, that if we truly want to do things, we have to stop dealing with the symptoms and start dealing with the root causes. Understanding that we can buffer the adversity through relationships with caring and competent adults, which is at the core of this campaign. Next slide, please. The goal of the campaign is to increase public awareness. And I mean, you call it an awareness campaign, right? So it seems to make sense. Encourage adoption of behaviors that can, in fact, mitigate the impact of ACEs. And look at how they impact our children, families, and communities, and recognize that we, as a group, each one of us, has the ability to have that impact. When we talk about our vision, we want to be trauma-informed and healing-centered. We truly do want to be a place where children and families can thrive regardless of where they are or where they live. As I continually say to folks, children do not exist outside of the context of family, and families do not exist outside of the context of community. So when you think of trauma and the awareness of this, think about trauma in this way, that it's yours, mine, and ours, that it is a collective impact that it has, and it's a collective impact that we have to begin to lower these amounts. Next slide. The work really, really would not have been done without the wisdom and voice of our community partners, and you see them all listed here. This is a dedicated group that became our community advisory board, and they've been there from the beginning. They've helped guide all of the language, just like the plan. You know, I keep letting folks know that the statewide action plan was not designed in a vacuum. It wasn't designed by a bunch of us in a room. This was a community effort, and if you look at it, you'll see the voices of community. And if you look at the language and things that you're going to find in this, the reason that it for me, it's so wise is that it was the community who moved us in that direction to help ensure that the campaign is helpful as a resource to New Jersey's families, schools, and the different precincts that our officers work in. I can't say enough about them. I will tell you that this board, one of the requirements when I took this position was that we have a community advisory board for the Office of Resilience. This group has agreed to become that for the Office of Resilience. They are from all over the state, from multiple areas as far as employment, and just plain old community folks. And so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate their willingness to move with us. You can stop sharing slides now. As we share this campaign with you, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Amanda Adams. As I said before, she's with the NJEA. But before I actually put Amanda on the spot, I just want to say a little something. And if it's possible, for our tech folks, and I hadn't thought of this before, I would have warned you, but I like to go off script. Is there a way you can split screen Amanda and I on the screen at the same time? Thank you. So Amanda and I, as I said, Amanda's the reason I'm here. About 7 years ago, I was presenting at an NJEA conference, and this woman came walking in. She said, I can only stay for 10, 15 minutes of your 3-hour presentation. And she sat down and she stayed that 10 or 15 minutes. She got up and walked out. And I went, uh-oh, I did something wrong. Don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure she's going to come back and tell me. At the end of my presentation, she came up to me and she said, I've been looking for you. I've been waiting for you. I said, what do you mean? She said, you have the answer that I've been looking for. And I said, what do you mean? She said, the things that you're talking about are the things that I've always felt but couldn't figure out how to put into words. And that began a journey over 7 years of presenting at the NJEA Fall Convention and other venues here in New Jersey, and eventually partnering with NJEA to train a group of people to present within NJEA itself, to actually go out and do trainings, and grew that from a group of 25 to a group of over 100 now, or close to 100. And now we have trainers who actually can train other presenters. When this position opened up, the first thing I did was call Amanda and say, this position opened up, I don't think I'm going to apply for it. And she said, yes, you are. I don't listen to too many people, but for some reason I listened to Amanda that day, and it's kind of like, here I am. I know of no one that I trust more in this work and really gets what's going on. I mean, the union itself is transforming how it does its work because of the work that we're all doing here in the state, and specifically because of the work that Amanda's doing with the union itself. I can't say enough about the partnership, but even more about the friendship. I appreciate you, Amanda. We always have. We'll continue to do that. And I'm going to let you take it from here and talk more about the campaign itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you so much. I wasn't prepared for that, so you're letting me speak to this group, feeling very emotional about this moment. I'm thrilled to help launch this important campaign after 5 or 6 years of partnering with you, Dave, on getting educators across the state trained on the ACEs research. I'm so proud of how many NJEA member consultants are trained to present this important information to our members. And I would like to brag a little bit about the fact that NJEA also has, including myself, the first 9 master trainers who are qualified to train other presenters in the state to go out and do this deeply important work. It is unique. We are the only teachers union in the country who are leading by creating or working towards creating the public school system to also being a healing hub for our children and their parents. And Dave, it is because of your partnership, your mentorship, and your friendship that we are in this place. So I want to thank you again. In the school improvement work that I do, one of the greatest struggles that teachers face is that far too often students show up with troubling behavior at school, and school staff struggle to find ways to connect to the most challenging students. The discipline suspend cycle is detrimental to our students' well-being, and for Black and Brown students in particular, it can contribute to the school to prison pipeline. So when I walked into Dave's workshop at the NJEA Teachers Convention a few years ago and learned about the ACEs research, he's right. A light bulb went off. I was deeply moved, and I knew that this information was the key to supporting educators and students, especially in our most challenging learning environments. And one of the most important things that I have learned is that when we stop asking students what's wrong with you and we begin asking them what happened to you and how can I help, relationships are built and the healing process begins. NJEA has an amazing cohort of consultants who are training educators from across the state. This work within NJEA couldn't happen without their commitment to this work. So I want to thank all of them as well. And after those ACEs workshops, we always get an overwhelming response from educators asking for more support and resources that can help educators do more for their students and their parents. So I'm honored to share how we can all be a part of that support now at the state level. This is a monumental moment. I'm going to share some more details about the Actions4Aces campaign. In every conversation about trauma, there is always a message of hope that begins with the adults and the caregivers. The idea is that we as adults, as mentors, as leaders in our schools and communities, can support the young people we work with by sharing a moment to show that we care. Our goal is to reach all 200,000 members of our NJEA members with these messages, including teachers, teachers' aides, food service workers, custodial staff, and others. These individuals are the most dedicated and committed professionals working every day with our children, and they can and will make a difference. As you can see in the posters pictured here, there are so many ways we can take Actions4Aces. We can share a game of basketball, cards, or anything that we have available to us to share a conversation about how someone's day is going. And most importantly, we can actually just listen. As the posters remind us, 2 out of 3 children have experienced trauma, and 3 out of 3 adults can help. But we must not forget, adults and caregivers, that we have to take care of ourselves and each other as well. When the adults are okay, the children will be okay. There are so many ways for us as educators, law enforcement, and community to get involved. First, you can do something very simple. Visit the Actions4Aces.com website to learn more. On this website, you'll find information about the science of ACEs, including resources that you can download and post in your community, classroom, or precinct. We encourage you to share this information on your social media. Graphics that you can post are on the website. We are also committed to, you can also commit to taking Actions4Aces. Talk about this important issue in your staff meetings, with your teams, and with your communities. To create healing spaces, we first must understand how children feel the impacts of adversity. I plan to take Actions4Aces by continuing to ensure that educators across the state are trained on ACEs science and research so that they can explore innovative ways to connect with each other, the students and families they serve, and become the centers of self-healing communities. Dave, How will you take Actions for Aces?
You know, Amanda, that's always a central question, and I'm going to give my answer the only way I know how. I plan for me to take my Actions for Aces to continue to listen to the wisdom and just the words of the community. I still believe that all of the answers sit in community, and that until we can listen, we will continue to try to do this work and not actually accomplish it. So I'm going to continue to listen and hold the community high. In addition, with the campaign, the Office of Resilience will continue to do trainings. You know, we just had one training. It was a statewide offering, free of charge. We can entertain up to 500 participants on our Zoom site. And so we've got 2 more coming, one in July and one in August. And so we'll continue to do those for staff, for DCF, for the community itself, the faith community, any community that wants to hear this message, we will go out and speak to. And it's not just the Office of Resilience. We have almost 200 people in the state trained to do presentations that are looking for places to present. If you go to the Actions4Aces website, you can link directly to and start to talk with folks about, I want to have a training. We can help you put that into place. Next, I'd like to introduce Angel Santiago. Some of you may know him, but for those of you who don't, he's a 5th grade teacher at Loring Fleming Elementary School. And more importantly for me, he is the 2021 New Jersey Teacher of the Year. Thank you, Angel, for joining us. And I'll now turn this over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I have to say thank you, Amanda, as an NJEA member. Thank you for your dedication and your work regarding this initiative. And thank you to all the partners involved in this campaign. And on behalf of all educators, I can safely say we are very honored to have our First Lady, Ms. Tammy Murphy, joining us today in forwarding this fulfilling mission. And all the members of the ACES collaborative team who have been on board and helped me open my eyes to the connection of ACES and to the students who become part of our extended families as educators year in and year out. My name is Angel Santiago. I'm the 2021 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year, but I'd like to think of myself, as Dave Ellis would say, just as one of those plain old community folks, a classroom teacher who cares about all of my kids. You know, during this time as New Jersey State Teacher, I've worked on various projects, but by far this has been one of the most informational, one of the most gratifying opportunities that I was able to be involved with. And this has been a very beautiful opportunity. You know, education is one of the first public institutions that affects the growth of our children. This type of work, Action4Aces, has been very near and dear to myself and to my colleagues, as we've known the importance of understanding adverse child experiences when we address issues of equity, of social emotional learning, all of which are intersecting. But to formally present these findings, not just to my colleagues, but to other health and service professionals and to the community as a whole, to bring forth the resources that encompasses all of the vital statistics and data in a central location is exciting. We have a tangible resource in a central location that professionals from education to health to public safety can reference and collaborate to find innovative solutions for children experiencing ACEs. And as a member of the Community Advisory Board for the Actions4Aces campaign, it's been a journey to see the resource for our state come to light, to fruition, from mere ideas into what we have now, the beginning of a movement and the beginning of action. The Community Advisory Board is a group of 16 education, law enforcement, and other health and service professionals who are passionate about supporting youth in our communities. This experience is put into context to what many teachers see throughout the districts. The physical and emotional needs of our students are a vital component in learning. This year, more than any other year in education, it has taught us that compassion must come before curriculum, and the Action4Aces campaign embodies this type of ideology. In all honesty, I had little knowledge of the longer-term physical and emotional effects that ACEs presented to our children. And when I took the ACEs tests myself, I had 4 of those adverse childhood experiences. I always knew that some of my trauma was mirrored in my students, but the ACEs Collaborative has conceptualized this idea. And perhaps this is why being part of this team has fed my soul. For me, this is personal and professional. Working with these different professionals has shown me that we as educators have partners, other people within our proverbial villages, to brainstorm and in turn create a safe and healthy community for our children. And it's been a privilege to work with these individuals who offered their expertise from their own prospective professions to ensure that every institution that services our children are aware of ACEs. In the classroom, we stress the importance in building an environment and a culture that is safe for our students, one that allows them to feel appreciated and represented when they walk in the door. And the ACEs Collaborative has brought professionals from all around the state to take this same type of approach into a community-wide and statewide level. As an educator, I know that I can take actions for ACEs every day to support my students. This will be especially important as we return to in-person learning in the fall. I'm committed to starting this conversation with my colleagues about how we can create healing spaces in our schools and take actions for ACEs together, encouraging my colleagues to become mentors for our students. There are many benefits of being a trusted adult in the lives of students. You can be a mentor. In every speech or every professional development that allows, I will be communicating the importance of the message of Actions for ACEs. And I pledge to train my fellow colleagues about the importance of this information and how they can become involved. And today we launch our campaign, and there will be a lot of ways for all educators, district personnel, and other professionals to be involved. Tomorrow, I challenge those on the committee and all of the media professionals here to head to the website, share the information on social media, and become involved. It's important for us to reach all of our professional circles as well as the general public with this information. And to my fellow educators, consider becoming an ambassador for Action for ACEs and offer training for your district to bring this vital information to your schools and to be part of this network of professionals sharing this important knowledge day in and day out. Remember, we as teachers are here to support the whole student beyond just the academics, and this campaign is the perfect example of supporting the whole student. Once again, thank you for this invitation, and I'm extremely excited to see this come into fruition, and I look forward to progressing this message. So I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Jennifer Davenport. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angel. If you have not felt the passion of the speakers who have gone before, please let me encourage you. Move closer to your speakers because it's there. Compassion before curriculum. I will keep that in mind. I'd like to introduce the Principal Law Enforcement Advisor to the Attorney General, Jen Davenport. She's in collaboration with Attorney General Grewal and has tirelessly supported all of this work and to help bring awareness to ACEs to law enforcement around the state. Through initiatives including Handle with Care, the Office of the AG has helped bring law enforcement and education together in support of New Jersey's youth. Jen?
Thank you, Dave. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Attorney General Grewal. Thank you to DCF and to the community here today for the launch of the Actions for ACEs campaign. We all have a part to play as we support youth in New Jersey, and law enforcement has an especially critical role when they engage in the lives of children. As Dave mentioned, in October 2020, Attorney General Grewal issued the Handle with Care directive, requiring law enforcement officers to promptly notify a child's school if the child is involved in or has witnessed a traumatic event. We know that law enforcement and educators choose their professions because they want to do good in the world, to be helpers. Law enforcement officers often express frustration that they cannot do more to help children. Handle with Care allows law enforcement to take an extra step to address the trauma and adverse experiences which unfortunately impacts so many children and teens in our state. We are grateful to Chief Lusner, who you will hear from shortly, for believing so deeply in this program that he not only introduced it in Middle Township, but promoted and encouraged it throughout the state. And not surprisingly, law enforcement executives and county prosecutors across New Jersey embraced this trauma-informed approach and wanted to know what more they could do. So this summer, we will take Actions for Aces by encouraging all 38,000 law enforcement officers in New Jersey to learn more about adverse childhood experiences, to learn more about the why, and to start conversations at work about additional ways to help support youth as they serve and protect us all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. You mentioned that look beyond piece. I keep encouraging people. We always talk about this thing about not looking at the trauma itself, but looking at who's the individual, who's the person, right? And that's a difficult thing for us often to do. I remember when I first met our next speaker. No, you can leave that camera on, sir. Please leave that camera on. Thank you very much. He and I were in a really, really interesting conversation. I've come to first respect him as an individual and as a human being. And as time goes by, yeah, he's got a uniform on. And I think that makes him even closer to me. I think I feel something really different now because I know him as the person that he truly is. And I think that's what we miss in a lot of our conversations, is that somehow the differences seem to come in before the humanity. And I appreciate you, Chris, for the friendship and the openness that you've had with me since we first met.
Thank you.
Chris will give us further insights into law enforcement and education and educators, and the plan to use the campaign to take Actions for Aces into the schools and the precincts. Chris Lusner is the chief of police in Middle Township Police Department. He's been a leading advocate among law enforcement in the state to share the importance of supporting youth who have experienced ACEs in Middle Township and across the state. Our goal is to reach 30,000 law enforcement officers across New Jersey with this campaign. And I'm looking to Chris to help lead us to that point. Chris?
Thank you, Dave. And thank you for your leadership. And, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that this information gets to the law enforcement officers across the state. It's so important. So good morning, everyone. I'm very excited about the launch of Actions for Aces campaign to raise awareness of ACEs in this state. Police chiefs in this state believe in community problem-oriented policing, and they're engaging partners in the community to tackle the causes of crime and social disorder. And there's some really good work going on in this state to connect citizens with substance abuse treatment services, with mental health services, and helping their communities solve problems. These are important initiatives, but I submit to you that we need to go upstream to tackle the true root cause of people coming in contact with the criminal justice system and police officers, and that's our kids being exposed to ACEs. When I first learned about ACEs, it transformed my view on the strategies I needed to employ in community problem-oriented policing, and that's what I want to see happen across this state. We can do this through cross-sector collaboration and police youth engagement with the goal of building resiliency in our kids, creating trauma-informed policies, and helping our communities heal. The research could not be more clear. The exposure to toxic stress or dramatic events is the root cause of many of the issues we deal with in law enforcement. The good news is this: what is predictable is preventable. Police officers are on the front lines every day at many of these traumatic events involving our kids and are in a unique position to help them. We can take information from the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the outstanding work done with Yale University to handle these calls for service in a manner to reduce the impact of these traumatic events. We can communicate through our Handle with Care programs with our school districts to enhance the awareness of the risk to children exposed to traumatic events. Before Handle with Care programs, our typical communication with the school revolved around kids being charged with crimes. The Handle with Care program simply requires a one-page form with no other information advising the school that a child was present at a traumatic event. In Middle Township, we launched the program in September 2018, and in our first school year, we had 110 referrals. These are not situations where a kid was in trouble. They were present or witnessed a dramatic event. I had a school official tell me they viewed the behavior of one of their students in school through a completely different lens the day after an event because of one of our Handle with Care referrals. The last thing we want to see is the school take action to compound the trauma because they did not know that something happened. We can also model other police departments in this state and institute police youth camps and other programs to promote positive youth engagement when there's not a problem, crisis, or emergency. We know these positive interactions with trusted adults, especially kids who have experienced a number of traumatic events, is very healthy. I believe that our work to reduce ACEs and help our communities build resiliency and healing is one of the most important things we can do to impact people's lives in a positive way, to prevent crime, to build healthier communities, help build trust in our communities. I encourage everyone to go to the website, Actions4Aces, take these resources and put them into action. I'm excited, and I say, let's get to work. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And thank all of you for your time. I see we are running very short, as we always are. And thank you for your attention. We're thrilled to share this campaign, quite frankly, and begin talking about Actions for ACEs together to support the youth in our state. So if you could bring that last slide, thank you very much. Please go to the Action4Aces.com to learn more and share with your colleagues and on your social media platforms and your channels. Send any inquiries to Bethany Georgianni. Her email is on that slide. If you leave that up for just a little while, please. To continue learning about ACEs, consider planning an ACE interface training for your staff, members, or community. Just reach out. We will respond. We would love to meet you and your teams. As I said, I know we are over time. I thank you for staying with us through this important announcement. And please figure out what your actions for ACEs are. And as Chief Lusner said, let's get busy. Thank you very much.